Hello and welcome to the Book Tasters. From young adult to tween and everything in between, the Book Tasters serve up the tastiest reviews of today's and yesterday's greatest stories. I'm your host, Timothy J. Burdick, and I'm joined today by my co-host for the week, Mr. Kian. Kian, how you doing today, my man? Fantastic. So, it's starting to get closer to the holidays, and we're all anxiously awaiting whatever holiday that we do celebrate, some Christmas, some Kwanzaa, some Hanukkah, whatever it may be. That feeling is in the air. Are you feeling it? When this episode goes live, it'll be, I think, Christmas Eve, which means that many people will probably be on their devices, listening real close. Do you have any advice for them during this holiday season? What's something that you would like to tell them before we start our whole book tasting interview? What's something about the holidays that you can share that'd be a good, sound advice?
Have fun in whatever you do and don't get caught up with stuff that you don't want to do. Just relax sometimes and just have fun.
Yeah, fantastic, because that relaxation time is definitely necessary. I know I, for one, as a teacher, when I go home, I do relax, you know. That long vacation time is something we look forward to. Not that we don't like coming to school, but the fact is your brain needs a break sometimes. Mm-hmm. However, what our brain does not need a break from are interesting facts, right? Those could be sold to us all day long, and our brain would never get tired of them. Am I right?
Yeah.
All right. I know you have an interesting fact with you right now. Why don't you go ahead and share that one with us?
Okay. A cloud typically weighs 1.1 million pounds.
A cloud weighs more than 1 million pounds?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. What do you think it's filled with?
Water.
Water is actually quite heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever been in a place where you've had something that's been full of water that's been on top of you?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Like, a water park where water just dumps out of like a huge bucket on you. It's heavy.
It is heavy. It knocks you over sometimes too. I remember I grew up in a town where there were beaches and waves and things like that, and so the undertow was so powerful on when you went into those waves that it could literally pull you underneath, and that's why it's called undertow, to the bottom of the bed floor, and you kind of freak out because you're like, oh my gosh, how do I get back up? And then once the wave went over, everything got calm. But yeah, that stuff's heavy. Yeah. And the fact that it's a cloud, we don't usually stop to think about it because we look at it, it looks so soft. It looks like a pillow.
And it's floating, like.
Exactly. I was 1 million pounds floating right now, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, I got one for you. Abraham Lincoln, the president, the former president, was a wrestler before becoming president.
What?
Yeah, he was a wrestler. So I'm thinking WWE, WWF. What kind of wrestling was he doing back then? Was he like, I don't know, because I can imagine him having a conversation with people, and he was totally against slavery, right? So that was his thing. He was, civil rights movement. I can imagine somebody coming up to him from the South and being like, Mr. Lincoln, I don't think we should have slavery, or I think we should have slavery, and I can just see him putting them in like a chokehold or something like that, or body slamming them down. Yeah. Every time I think about Abraham Lincoln, I'm no longer going to think about that cap, that hat that he always wore, or his beard. I'm going to think about him as a wrestler. Do you know much about wrestling?
No.
Are you a wrestler?
No.
Oh, okay, I know the feeling. I never really liked the sport very much. However, I do like people who do the sport because if they're if they're motivated to do so, go for it. Yeah. All right, you got another one for me?
Yeah. It is impossible or very hard to do to lick your elbow.
Interesting. All right, give it a shot. Everybody in video, I don't know if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to go word for word. I'm going to describe this if you're just listening. But everybody in the video, you can watch Kian try to lick his elbow right now, all right? He's trying. Okay, he's twisting it towards the back and trying to bend it, unfortunately. And it looks like he got pretty close. The tongue is extending, and it's getting the side of the elbow, but not really the elbow. All right, good try. My try. I won't try that one because I know it's not possible for me, especially because my arms are like 6'5" wingspan, and I can only imagine how impossibly hard it would be to get my elbow there. So I'm going to let you work with that one. Maybe a little bit more practice. Yeah. All right, I got another one for you, okay? The opposite sides of the dice, so any dice that you have, always add up to 7.
Okay, so it's like 6 and 1?
Yeah, so if you have the 6, the 1 would be on the opposite side, right?
Oh.
And if you have the 5, the 2 would be on the opposite side, because that would equal 7.
Yeah.
Would you like to prove it?
Sure.
All right, I'm giving Kian the dice right now. If you're watching online right now, you could take a look, and if you're
1.
listening, I'm going to show it through my voice. So go for it, Kian. Give it a roll. See how it goes. All right.
4.
He just rolled a 4. So if you look at the 4, I'll show it to the camera over there. See the 4? Perfect. And then on the opposite side of the 4 would be the
3.
Show it to the camera, my man. There it is. The 4 and the 3 are 7. All right, my turn. Hopefully I don't get a 4 or a 3. I got a 4. All right, gotta take another one. All right, I got a 3. I got another one. Oh, 1. All right, so if you look at the 1, there's the 1 right there. Okay. And on the opposite side of the 1 would be the
6.
Nailed it. That is insane. I love math. I should become a math teacher because numbers are fun. However, numbers are not as much fun as your 5th fact. Go ahead and share that with us.
According to Harry Potter Wiki, if Merlin had gone to Hogwarts, he would be in Slytherin House.
Ooh, I wonder why. What do you know about Merlin that would put him in Slytherin House?
He probably, well, he wants to, he doesn't want to follow orders. He wants to do, like, he's in charge, or he wants to do what he wants to do. Like, he doesn't really like to follow orders. Yeah.
He's kind of a renegade then, a rebel, if you will, because he doesn't follow the status quo. He doesn't follow what everyone thinks he should do.
Yeah.
He just does what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see why Merlin would be that. I really like the fact that you're blending these two worlds. We have Harry Potter, that whole universe of magic and magicians, and very rarely do we hear about Merlin. I remember that's one of the things that they say in the book often is, Merlin's beard, right? And that's something that's one of the things. I always thought about how interesting how we have Merlin, who is from the Knights of the Round Table, if I recall, right? The King Arthur, right?
Yeah.
That's two different universes, but yet they're both linked by magic.
Yeah.
Right? And it would be interesting to think about past magicians in past books, that how they would filter into the whole Harry Potter, Slytherin, Gryffindor houses. But that's really interesting that you made that connection between Merlin. So tell me about this book you're reading. It's also titled Merlin, right? Yeah.
So it's kind of like, because you usually hear of Merlin when he's an adult teaching King Arthur, and you really don't hear about him like as a little kid. Well, that's this. It's him as like a teenage boy, and like what he would be doing as like a teenage boy.
Oh, so it's kind of like, we just talked about connecting those two worlds of Harry Potter with King Arthur. Yeah. And actually, there's even more of a connection, because when you think about Harry Potter, you think of a young wizard growing up. Mm-hmm. And here we have Merlin. We already know his story and as he's older and what he's been able to do with King Arthur. Now we're kind of going back into this connection of what was life for him as a youth.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit more about this book. Where is it set place, and how is Merlin reacting to the setting around him?
It is set in an in-between place kind of thing. It's an island that you can't get to from this world. It's like it's called Finkara, but you have to be like, we have to have Finkara blood to get there. So it's like, it has like giants, dwarves, bards. It has it's like magic, but with like different creatures too. Like there are dragons, like mythical creatures. But then there are like the bad guys there. They're like worse because they have magic too, so they can it's harder to beat them. So he has to, and there's one main bad guy, but he controls people for him. Like he died, but it's like his spirit is still alive. And then there's this good guy who fights him too, who also died, but his spirit, their spirits fight constantly. Mm-hmm. And Merlin is with the good guy, and then his name is Dagda. And then the bad guy, he just controls a lot of people.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
it's kind of I'm making more and more connections with it. I haven't read any more. I actually don't know too much about
Yeah.
the Knights of the Round Table either. It's not one of my expertise. But having read Harry Potter, I'm seeing a lot of connections with Voldemort and his whole idea of having Horcruxes,
Yeah.
in which his spirit continues to live on every book,
Yeah.
and yet he continues to control things around a certain setting, even though he isn't technically in existence.
Yeah.
And this whole idea, I'm making another connection too with the Marvel comic universe. In order to get to this place, you have to have this particular type of blood.
Yeah.
The same thing happened with Black Panther and Wakanda.
Yeah.
You couldn't get into Wakanda unless you had Wakandan blood.
Yeah.
And if you were, they would instantly find out who you are with their,
Yep.
technology and things like that. So when Merlin enters in this area, and obviously there's a protagonist, which would be Merlin, he's a
Yep.
good guy. And then there's these antagonists, the bad guys who
Yep.
are, disrupting this whole island area.
Mm-hmm.
What's Merlin's goal in going to this place?
Well, he really just wants to protect his family and friends. Like, he has a sister and his mom. His dad, he's locked in prison because he was controlled by the bad guy. Like, not knowingly, but he was. So, for all his, years, as getting controlled, and he was the king for a while. So, he did a lot of bad things for it, Finkara. So now he's in prison to, calm down or something. It doesn't exactly say why, but I think it's, to calm down.
It seems like kind of like a detox. Maybe Merlin has somehow managed to infiltrate the spirit within him and kind of keep him inside of a bubble inside this area so that he's not tormented by the spirit himself, and he's kind of detoxing from within so that he can become normal again.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm thinking that might be going. Okay, so obviously the author has done a very good job in getting your attention in this book. What are the key aspects of this book that are just so impressive to you that you're like, this book is great?
Well, magic, he can weave in and out, in cool ways. He can make people turn into deer when he wants. It's crazy. He uses instrument, he has bards, and, every other magician. He, weaves in magic everywhere.
Nice. And so the magical thread that weaves the whole story together is something that is really quite interesting to see.
Yeah.
Does he, now I'm trying to compare again to Harry Potter, does he have a wand? Does he use his hands? How does he do his magic?
It's, it's kind of his hands, it's kind of not. It's usually his hands, and, he can control it, it's in him, and he can control it. It's usually hands or something just happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's more like a mental telepathy type thing. He thinks it occurs, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Cool. Nice. That's awesome. I like that kind of magic because it's so versatile,
Mm-hmm.
I do like the Harry Potter wand magic, which you need a spell, because I like the language that it comes. If you say, Wingardium Leviosa, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
But, when you are a magician like Merlin, who's, obviously one of super powerful magicians, I really like the spontaneity of being able to just do things without having to, say a spell or just let it happen, He really has to think about what's going to happen when his magic spells occur.
Yeah.
All right, so I know you you picked out some pages.
Yeah.
Now I know you want to read a little bit to us. Why don't you find those pages real quick? I'm going to talk a little bit more about Merlin. Now, if you are unfamiliar with Merlin, it might be a good idea to do a little Google search to look up who he is and who he was in the folklore of the Knights of the Round Table, led by King Arthur. There was Lancelot. There was obviously a whole bunch of different tie-ins with old England before it was conquered and everything like that, so that they could become, the knights. And they became myth. No one knows if they're true, but for the most part, people believe that they weren't. But it was more like a fictional piece of understanding of how things were explained in England during the time. And so the Knights of the Round Table were a huge part of that culture, and to this day still are, with books like Merlin. So why don't you go ahead and get us started. First of all, before you begin, what's going on in the story, and then go ahead and start reading when you're ready.
He is fighting a dragon that is mad at him because he thinks he killed his babies in, like, before they even got out of their eggs. And the dragon was sleeping for, like, hundreds of years. When Merlin's grandfather, Tuatha, he put him under a spell that, like, made the dragon sleep. So he, like, just woke up, and Merlin is, like, trying to get him to understand that he didn't kill the hatchlings.
All right, go ahead and read on.
For a long moment, as the sun lifted over the horizon, Valdrag did not move. Then suddenly he started sliding over the rocks, crushing them beneath his weight. Immediately, Ion bounded in the opposite direction. He rounded the corner at a gallop, then halted so fast I ran into his uplifted neck and nearly flew over his head. We were face to face with Valdrag. The sound we had heard must have come from loose rocks tumbling down the slope. Ion reared back, kicking wildly, but at the same moment the monstrous tail lashed out. The barbs coiled swiftly around my chest, crushing my ribs, then carried me into the air. In an instant I hung suspended before Valdrag's snout. A blast of hot air scorched me as he gave a disgusted grunt. His voice, as immense as his open jaws, demanded, "Why do you not fight me, young wizard? Why do you only flee?" Barely able to breathe, let alone speak, I rasped, "I have no powers." "You have powers enough to murder hatchlings still in their eggs." The yellow eyes blazed. "Well, grandson of Tuatha, you shall flee no more." "You must believe me," I protested. "I didn't do it." "Shall I begin by biting off one limb at a time?" His purple lips parted as he wrenched a skull off one of his upraised claws. His jaws compressed, crushing the skull completely. "No, I have a better idea. I shall roast you first." Grumbling, the rumbling gathered, swelling deep within his chest. It grew steadily louder, while flames started licking his nostrils. At the same time, the tail's grip on me tightened. My lungs couldn't breathe. My heart couldn't beat. The jaws opened as an avalanche of fire rushed towards me. All at once, Valdrag's ears pricked, and he cocked his head slightly. The flame shot past, searing my boots, but nothing more. Valdrag released a sudden cry of surprise as his tail released its hold. I thudded to the ground. Ion raced to my side as I gasped for air. Wrapping one arm around the stallion's neck, I struggled to rise and to see what had distracted the dragon. Approaching us on the charred terrain, half hobbling and half flying, came a truly strange creature. At first, all I could see was an ungainly mass, as ragged as a storm-lashed sapling. Then I glimpsed a flash of iridescent purple, a crumpled fold of leathery skin, a pair of bony shoulders, and atop the head, supported by a thin gangly neck, a pair of ears, one of which thrust out to the side like a misplaced horn. The baby dragon! She had survived. In a flash, her enormous father spun around, nearly swatting Ion and me with the bony tip of his wing. He lumbered over to the hatchling, stopping just short of her. His belly rumbled with a steady, soft drone, almost like the purr of an oversized cat, as he placed his snout upon the ground. Cautiously at first, then whimpering excitedly, the baby dragon allowed his warm breath to blow across her scales. For a long moment they looked at each other, the yellow glow of his eyes melting into the orange glow of hers. Finally, he unfurled his massive wing so that she might crawl into it. Folding its edges around her like a blanket, Valdrag drew his baby near. She gave a contented squeak and huddled closer. Craning his neck, the dragon lifted his colossal head. To the skies rose a sound unlike any sound heard in Finkara for ages upon ages, since the birth of Wings of Fire himself. It was a mixture of deep rumbling and high swirling, ringing notes that flew skyward with the grace of arrows. It was a complex melody, a magical tapestry woven with the lore of generations of dragons. It was more than anything else a song of celebration. Ion and I listened transfixed as Valdrag's song continued for an hour or more. The hatchling curled tightly inside her father's wing, lifted her own snout from time to time. Her ear, as plucky as ever, stretched out to the side. She seemed to be listening to the song as carefully as ourselves, but with native understanding far beyond our own. In time, the great dragon lowered his head. Moving with the power of a huge wave surging over the sea, his neck swung towards me. As soon as his gaze met my own, the spell of the song disappeared. Fear raced through me. He was coming after me, again.
Nice. That is phenomenal writing. I can see why you like this book so much. I mean, there's so much action packed into that one little section that you read. It was like 2 pages, and it really felt like you were Merlin. I really like how he uses the first person I. Was not so much like an omniscient narrator, but telling it from his own perspective. Really, really well done. So the book is called Merlin. This is the book 3 in the Raging Fire. No, the series is Merlin, correct?
Yes.
So the series is Merlin. This is book 3.
Out of 12.
Out of 12. This particular book is called The Raging Fires. The author is T.A. Barron, and we will link that on our social media as we post it. But all in all, this entire series, you're obviously up to book 3. Would you recommend it?
Yes.
Why?
Because if you like history, well, not really history, but like magic and like adventure in action, it has a ton of that. It's
beautifully eloquent, excellently well written. Shout out to T.A. Barron for producing such a quality series. So if you want to get that book, once again, it's called the Merlin series by T.A. Martin. This particular book is called The Raging Fires. It's book 3 out of 12. You can catch that online, Amazon, anywhere you can go, anywhere you buy books. And also, when it comes to, we're actually going to be taking a couple weeks off so we can celebrate our holiday season and take our brain breaks.
Yep.
But feel free to catch us back when we start our next episodes in the new year of 2020 by heading to www.thebooktasters.com. That's THEBOOKTASTERS. You can also catch us on my social media accounts, both on Instagram, on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, so if you can help us there at Timothy J. Burdick, you'll be able to follow us and be able to get updated whenever we release new episodes. You can also find us on YouTube, where we post this particular episode in video format. Feel free to give us a like, a subscription, and perhaps leave your comments with what you thought about this book, and if you've read it before, let us know what you think. Until next year, we'll see you then. Thanks again, Kian, for joining us.
Yep.